In his high school years, John B. O'Donnell attended Augusta Military Academy at Fort Defiance, Virginia. According to Matthew M. Peake, Military Collection Archivist for the state of North Carolina, in June 1942 O'Donnell applied to the Officers' Training School. After completing his training, he was appointed second lieutenant and assigned to the quartermaster section of the 14th Port of Embarkation at Camp Hathaway in Vancouver, Washington. On July 8, 1943, the 14th Port traveled to the European theatre, arriving in England on July 15, 1943. O'Donnell was soon promoted to first lieutenant, and there followed an indication of what was to come when he was assigned to a refresher school for officers entitled Outloading School, conducted at Southampton. Although Southampton had suffered badly in 1940, it was still a sound port when, against the advice of the British High Command, the US Army chose it as the springboard for the liberation of Europe. The port not only benefited from long quaysides from which Patton's Third Army can be seen loading, and cruise liners still used today, but specially constructed hards where tanks could be loaded directly onto landing craft, and from which troops also left for Omaha Beach. John B. O'Donnell was assigned to the 14th Port of Embarkation at Southampton, which was the chief supply and troop movement center for the US Army. The embarkation machinery was set in motion in late April 1944, when forces were marshalled to participate in the last amphibious exercises. The loading of the assault and follow-up forces began at the end of May. Aside from the 5th and 8th Divisions, which were embarked from Northern Ireland in late June and early July, and the 9th Armoured Group, which loaded at Swansea in the Bristol Channel area, the bulk of the normal build-up forces moved through the southern base section, with Southampton and its subports playing the major role. Major William B. Shop Shepherd says about the time, "We were responsible for moving all our corps, most of the Third Army and 20 Corps, across the Channel. I never worked so hard in my bloody life. The system for moving troops to the far shore was based on previously established priority tables called build-up priority tables. There was a B.U.C.O, Build-Up Control Organization at Southampton, and Little B.U.C.O on the continent. A shipping schedule was worked out, but this broke down due to some units being lost, others not arriving on time, or because of the inability to obtain proper equipment. Part of the Chief of Staff's job was that of making an educated guess as to when a unit would be ready, and then assigning it to a shipping date. This schedule then had to be worked out with B.U.C.O, who did the shipping. To add to the confusion, phantom telephone calls would be received from Army requesting that certain units be immediately shipped. Sometimes these units were not ready or had not even arrived. The connections were always bad, and guesses had to be made as to just what unit and strength were required. At other times, units would be ready ahead of schedule, and the Navy had to be persuaded to take them as soon as possible, the joint aim being to keep the boats running continuously. O'Donnell supervised the receipt, storage and issue of general supplies within the Army units at Southampton, and remained stationed at the Southampton port of embarkation throughout 1945. He eventually received orders to return to the US to the reception station at Fort Bragg for processing out of active military service, and departed England on November 19, 1945.